You pull out your phone, you open Instagram, you scroll through photos from your friend's vacation in Hawaii. Where are those photos right now? If you said in the cloud, you're technically right. But here's what nobody tells you. The cloud isn't floating in the sky, it's sitting in a massive building in Virginia, or Oregon, or Iowa. It's locked behind military-grade security. It's consuming more electricity than a small city, and it's so loud inside that you'd need ear protection just to walk through it. We throw around this phrase, the cloud, like our data is just casually floating around in some ethereal digital dimension. But that's not what's happening at all. What's actually happening is way more interesting and honestly kind of mind-blowing. In the next 15 minutes, you're going to understand exactly where your data lives. Not metaphorically, literally. You'll see the physical buildings, the underwater cables, the cooling systems, and the security measures that make your digital life possible. And once you understand this, you'll never look at your phone the same way again. Because here's the thing. Every single time you upload a photo, send an email, or watch a YouTube video, you're not just creating digital magic. You're triggering a chain reaction across physical infrastructure that spans the entire planet. And most people have absolutely no idea this world even exists. Let's go inside. So here's what's really happening when you save something to the cloud. You're actually uploading it to someone else's computer. That's it. That's the big secret. The cloud is just a fancy marketing term for a bunch of really powerful computers sitting in a warehouse somewhere. But here's where it gets interesting. These aren't warehouses like the one where Amazon stores your toilet paper. These are some of the most sophisticated buildings ever constructed. They're called data centers. And they're basically fortresses designed for one purpose, keeping servers alive and running 24/7, 365. Think about it this way. Your laptop gets hot when you're watching Netflix, right? Now imagine a building with 50,000 computers all running at full speed all the time, never turning off. The heat would melt everything, the noise would be deafening, and if the power went out for even 10 seconds, millions of people would lose access to their data instantly. That's the reality nobody talks about when they say, just save it to the cloud. What they're really saying is trust that there's a massive physical infrastructure somewhere that will keep your stuff safe forever. And this matters because your entire digital life, your photos, your documents, your messages, they all depend on buildings and cables and cooling systems that you've never seen. It's not magic, it's engineering. Really impressive, really expensive engineering. And it's happening right now, all around you, completely invisible. Here's what I call the proximity paradox. Your data is simultaneously everywhere and somewhere specific. When you upload a photo to iCloud, Apple doesn't just store it in one place. They copy it to multiple data centers across different geographic locations. So your vacation selfie might exist in North Carolina, California, and Denmark all at the same time. Why do they do this? Because hard drives fail, servers crash, buildings flood. Apple learned this the hard way. Back in the early days of cloud storage, companies would keep everything in one location. Then a fire would break out, or a flood would hit, and boom, thousands of people would lose everything. So now they use what's called redundancy. Every piece of data gets copied multiple times. Think of it like this. You wouldn't keep all your money in one place, right? You'd spread it across different accounts, maybe different banks. Same concept. Tech companies spread your data across different servers in different buildings in different states or even different countries. This matters because it explains why cloud storage is so reliable. It's not because the technology is perfect. It's because they've built a system where things can fail without you ever noticing. One server dies, no problem. Your data is already backed up on 3 other servers in 3 other locations. But here's what makes this even more surprising. All those different data centers need to talk to each other. They need to constantly sync your data. And that's where things get really wild. Because the internet isn't wireless. Not really. Sure, your phone connects to Wi-Fi, but that Wi-Fi router connects to a cable. That cable connects to another cable. And eventually, all those cables lead to the ocean. Yeah, the ocean. This is the part that blows people's minds. 99% of international data travels through cables at the bottom of the ocean. Not satellites, not radio waves. Actual physical cables lying on the ocean floor. These submarine cables are about as thick as a garden hose. They stretch for thousands of miles underwater, and they carry basically the entire internet. When you send a message to someone in Europe, your data travels through your phone, through your router, through your internet provider's infrastructure, and then into one of these underwater cables that runs across the Atlantic Ocean. Right now, there are over 500 of these cables crisscrossing the ocean floor. Companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon have spent billions of dollars laying their own private cables because they need that bandwidth. They need to move massive amounts of data between continents every single second. Your brain does this thing where it assumes technology is wireless and magical. Back when we were evolving, information traveled through sound and sight. You couldn't see invisible data moving through the air, so your brain doesn't have a framework for understanding it. But in today's world, almost everything digital still depends on physical cables, and most people have no clue. Here's another pattern I've noticed: the thermodynamic nightmare. Data centers generate an insane amount of heat. We're talking millions of watts of heat energy. If you didn't cool these buildings, the servers would literally catch fire. So how do they cool them? With some of the most complex air conditioning systems ever built. Most data centers use something called cold aisle, hot aisle design. Basically, they arrange the server racks so cold air flows in from one side and hot air exits from the other. Then they capture that hot air and pump it out of the building. But that's just the basic setup. Some data centers use liquid cooling. They pump chilled water through pipes that run directly next to the servers. Others use evaporative cooling, kind of like how sweat cools your body. There are even data centers built in cold climates like Sweden or Iceland, specifically because the outside air is cold enough to help with cooling. Facebook built a data center in Luleå, Sweden, near the Arctic Circle. Google has one in Hamina, Finland. Microsoft actually sank an entire data center to the bottom of the ocean off the coast of Scotland to see if the cold seawater would keep it cool naturally. And it worked. This matters because cooling is one of the biggest costs of running a data center. It's not just about buying servers, it's about keeping those servers from overheating. Some estimates say that cooling can account for 40% of a data center's total energy consumption. Think about Jake. Jake uploads all his photos to Google Photos. He's got like 20,000 photos on there. Every time he opens the app, Google's servers have to retrieve those photos from storage. That means powering up hard drives, running processors, sending data across networks. All of that generates heat. Jake never thinks about this. To him, his photos are just in the cloud. But what's actually happening is that Google is constantly managing the temperature of buildings, the size of football fields, to make sure Jake can access his vacation photos anytime he wants. And here's the psychology behind it. Your brain thinks digital stuff is weightless and effortless. But every single digital action has a physical consequence. Every email you send, every video you stream, every file you download, it all requires energy, it all generates heat. It all depends on physical infrastructure. Now here's where things get particularly sneaky: the energy consumption crisis. Data centers use an absolutely staggering amount of electricity. In the United States alone, data centers consume about 2% of the country's total electricity. That's enough to power millions of homes, and it's growing. Every year, we create more data. We stream more video. We upload more photos. And all of that requires more servers, more cooling, more power. Some experts predict that by 2030, data centers could consume 8% of the world's electricity. Where does all this power come from? Mostly from the electrical grid, which means coal, natural gas, and nuclear power. Tech companies know this looks bad, so they're investing heavily in renewable energy. Google says they're carbon neutral. Apple claims their data centers run on 100% renewable energy. But here's what they don't tell you. Even if they buy renewable energy credits, the actual power flowing into their data centers often still comes from fossil fuels. It's complicated accounting that makes them look green without necessarily changing where their electricity comes from. This isn't about blaming tech companies. They're doing what makes business sense. But it reveals something important. The cloud isn't clean. It's not some ethereal, eco-friendly technology. It's massive industrial infrastructure that consumes resources on a scale most people can't even imagine. And this connects to something even deeper. Every time you choose to store something in the cloud instead of on your device, you're making a trade-off. You're trading convenience for energy consumption. You're trading accessibility for environmental impact. Most people never think about that trade-off because the infrastructure is invisible. But here's what nobody wants to admit. The reason tech companies built the cloud wasn't to make your life easier. It was to control your data. Think about it. When your files are on your laptop, you own them. You control them. But when they're in the cloud, they're on someone else's computer, someone else's servers, someone else's infrastructure. What's actually happening is a massive shift in who controls information. 20 years ago, if you wanted to access someone's files, you'd need physical access to their computer. Now, everything is centralized. Your photos, your documents, your emails, they're all sitting in data centers owned by a handful of companies. And those companies can access your data anytime they want. They can scan it, they can analyze it, they can use it to train AI models. You agreed to all of this when you clicked I accept on those terms of service you never read. This isn't some conspiracy theory, it's just how the system works. Google scans your emails to show you targeted ads. Amazon analyzes your cloud storage to recommend products. Apple keeps encrypted backups of your data, but they also have the keys to decrypt it if law enforcement shows up with a warrant. The people who built the cloud understood something fundamental about human psychology. Convenience beats privacy almost every time. If you make something easy enough, people will hand over their data without thinking twice. And that's exactly what happened. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah's been using Google Drive for about 5 years now. She's got her whole life on there. Tax documents, family photos, work files, everything. Sarah thinks this is great because she can access her files from anywhere. But here's what Sarah doesn't realize. Every single one of those files is sitting on Google's servers. Google can analyze them. Google's AI can read them. And if Google decides to change their terms of service, or if they decide to shut down an account, or if there's a data breach, Sarah could lose access to everything. Sarah trusts Google because Google makes it easy. The interface is clean, the sync works seamlessly, and Google has never given her a reason to worry. So she keeps uploading more and more of her life to their servers. Now compare that to Marcus. Marcus started in the exact same position, but Marcus understood something Sarah didn't. He realized that convenience comes with trade-offs. Instead of putting everything in the cloud, Marcus keeps his most important files on an external hard drive that he physically controls. He uses cloud storage for things he needs to access from multiple devices, but he doesn't rely on it completely. Marcus isn't paranoid. He's not some privacy extremist living off the grid. He just understands that the cloud is someone else's computer. And he's made a conscious decision about what data he's willing to trust to someone else's infrastructure. Notice how different their approaches are? Sarah optimizes for convenience. Marcus optimizes for control. Neither one is wrong, but only one of them understands the actual trade-off they're making. Here's what most people don't realize. The cloud isn't just a technology, it's a business model. Tech companies don't offer cloud storage because they want to help you. They offer it because data is valuable. The more of your data they have, the more they know about you. The more they know about you, the better they can target ads, the better they can recommend products, the better they can keep you locked into their ecosystem. It's not actually about storage space at all. It's about control. The people who succeed in the digital age don't just blindly upload everything to the cloud. They understand that every piece of data they hand over is a piece of themselves they're giving away. And once it's out there, they can't get it back. These patterns aren't personal failures. They're predictable traps that anyone falls into. But now that you understand how the cloud actually works, the physical buildings, the underwater cables, the energy consumption, the security measures, you can make informed decisions about what you trust to it. So here's what we've uncovered. The cloud is real, physical infrastructure spread across the planet. massive data centers consuming electricity on an industrial scale, submarine cables carrying data across ocean floors, cooling systems fighting thermodynamics 24/7, and security measures designed to keep your data safe while also giving companies access to analyze it. Plus, there's this whole business model built on the idea that you'll trade privacy for convenience without really thinking about it, which connects to the deeper truth that technology isn't magic. It's just someone else's infrastructure that you're renting access to. The question isn't whether you should use the cloud. Of course you should. It's incredibly useful. The question is whether you'll understand what you're actually doing when you use it. Because now you know the cloud isn't in the sky. It's in a building. It's using electricity. It's generating heat. And it's controlled by companies that have different priorities than you do. You can't unknow this. Next time you upload a photo, you'll think about the server rack it's going to. Next time you stream a movie, you'll think about the underwater cable carrying that data. Next time you save a document, you'll think about the data center keeping it cool and backed up. Because once you see that the cloud is just infrastructure, everything looks different. You see the trade-offs, you see the costs, you see the physical reality behind the marketing term, and that's exactly what most people never realize. So next time someone tells you to just put it in the cloud, ask yourself, do I understand where it's actually going? Because it's not going to the sky. It's going to a building in Virginia. And that building is very real.